San Francisco can take your breath away, but so too can some of the city's biggest problems: homelessness, housing affordability, and crime.
My elder aunties and uncles aren't safe to walk the streets. I don't feel safe anymore.
Thank you so much for being here.
Now, an inspiring gathering.
We just need constant solutions. We all come from different backgrounds, but actually we all want the same thing.
Join KPIX 5 as we present SFNext, Searching for Solutions, a special project created by the San Francisco Chronicle. Welcome, I'm Juliette Goodrich here at the Exploratorium, where you don't just look at exhibits, you dive in. You solve problems about our world around us, come up with solutions. And that's why this place is the perfect setting for an extraordinary conference that aims to make waves. At the museum, about 200 guests, all city residents. They came to take part in an unusual experiment.
We want to generate creative new ideas, and we want to demonstrate that those new ideas can be worked on by people who don't necessarily agree on a lot of things.
Why the need for any new ideas? A massive survey shows how citizens are simply fed up with how City Hall is handling some major problems. There's too much red tape, and the gridlock has got to go.
We did a real comprehensive poll of the city of San Francisco, and one of the things it found was very low approval ratings for public officials. Also, a lot of these problems we're dealing with have been around for decades. We kind of feel like they've had their shot to fix these things. Now let's try a community-based approach.
Weigh in on the gridlock. What is your perspective? Just how deep is it?
One of the big frustrations of residents in San Francisco is how long it takes to get anything done. There's just no way of understanding and explaining to people why to open a store it takes weeks and weeks. People want to see things move faster.
I know that this was scientifically designed to reach and resemble all of the demographics throughout San Francisco. So what are the three topics that you're focusing on?
By far the biggest concern found in the poll was homelessness. After that, it was crime and safety, and then housing in general.
It's just gummed up with regulation.
The guests spent the day listening to experts and talking about their concerns. But as part of the big experiment, some groups broke away. Their destination, one of 3 rooms with the intent to tackle a big issue. The breakout groups are about to do a whole different kind of brainstorming, and there's a name for it. It's called design thinking. From Apple's first computer mouse to stand-up toothpaste tubes, these innovations were created by design thinking. But can the method solve some of San Francisco's biggest problems?
Okay, so you're here to take part in an experiment.
The legendary Steve Jobs used it with great success.
This is kind of the first computer of the 1990s.
He sought to match a human need to a creative solution and not just to a chunk of metal.
It's a totally different approach. Very different approach.
The strategy is used for more than just making products.
I know that if we design an experience well, it will fundamentally change the way we act and behave in society.
In 2015, Blaise Bertrand worked for the global design firm IDEO, which is headquartered in San Francisco. Bertrand led the team which created a new voting system in Los Angeles. The touchscreen device can accommodate every possible voter, including those in a wheelchair, with a visual or hearing impairment, and anyone who speaks another language.
Historically, voting systems in this country haven't been designed with the voter in mind.
Solutions are centered around what people really need, and it requires a collaborative effort. Stanford Healthcare used design thinking in the building of its new medical center. Designers not only interviewed patients and families, they spoke to the hospital staff, observed interactions, and got feedback. The goal, to create an optimal healing experience. Alba Vallez is with Stanford Healthcare.
We could take all of that and really design a meaningful environment.
That said, design thinking is about to get underway at the museum. But a looming question, solutions for whom?
So are you solving the problems for the rich people in the marine area, solving problems in different areas? That's a very good question. And how do you get to solutions for everybody?
The brainstorming will be held in private behind closed doors to allow a frank, unfettered debate from all perspectives. Inside each breakout room, volunteers experienced in the design thinking. They assigned each room a single problem to solve. How to streamline the process for getting more housing for everyone. how to create more shelters for those living on the streets, and how to make residents feel safer from nonviolent crime. As you'll see, getting to these new ideas at times ignited a passionate response.
So you think we got a homeless problem now? Wait for another year when there's no services for the homeless people.
Where are we willing to make trade-offs?
It's about the person.
In the end, San Francisco citizens created and then presented a fresh take on how to fix some of the city's biggest problems.
So we considered 3 aspects.
We could actually make a difference.
And these are our ideas.
Coming up next, the team tackles their first big issue, homelessness. Welcome back to SF Next, searching for solutions, where citizens are tackling some of the city's biggest problems in an entirely different way. Behind door number 1, the problem of homelessness, a daunting challenge. In fact, a city report estimates that as many as 20,000 people may find themselves unhoused at some point this year. The SF Next poll found over 70% listed homelessness as the top problem in the city. It's hard to imagine how San Francisco can have so much wealth and yet so many people are living on the streets. KPIX 5's Wilson Walker spoke to a man who is uniquely qualified to talk about solutions, a man who was once homeless himself.
Hey guy, you all right? You all right? You need some coffee or anything? You're talking to a formerly homeless person. You good? It meant so much to me for people to make eye contact with me, to be willing to extend their hand of kindness to me. That gradually led me to a place where I could get up literally from the floor of Hospitality House and start my long journey back toward the light. PPE, masks.
Once homeless and here for help, Joe Wilson is now the executive director of Hospitality House, an organization that opened its doors about the same time the city's homeless problem emerged.
One of the city's smallest but oldest emergency shelters, started in the winter of 1982.
The Hospitality House, a shelter for the homeless and the unemployed, crowded at midday.
That was 1982.
Social service workers say the problems right now for the homeless are serious, but they predict the worst is still to come.
Well, they told us we have to move every day, at least twice a day. They come back at 2:30 to make us move again.
40 years later, the problems continue, but Wilson sees this all unfolding on a much larger scale.
400 years ago in Elizabethan England, the Elizabethan Poor Laws, there was a clear distinction between the deserving and undeserving poor.
But after 4 decades of shifting plans and strategies, SFNext polling suggests the people of San Francisco are ready for solutions now. When asked which of the problems facing the city need to be fixed most urgently, 39% said homelessness, compared to just 23% for safety and crime.
We have to do something about housing. We have to do something about our economic system that reproduces poverty and homelessness at an alarming rate.
For his part, Wilson says he will argue that the problems are systemic.
Hey, how you doing? You all right?
And he says a lot of people might not like the proposed solutions. He says real help, real answers will come with a cost.
Because poverty is an economic problem. So the solution is economic. Whatever solution we embark upon is going to cost money. People want to get into shelter.
Joe Wilson then joined the conference.
First and foremost, we have to be honest with you that the problem is bigger, it's harder, it's deeper, and it's more far-reaching than we've let on, and our solutions have to be creative.
Wilson warned the crowd that the conditions on the street are worsening.
We see far more visible evidence of homelessness and poverty than we have in some time.
More people who need more services more often. It won't be cheap.
Every investment has to be geared toward bigger, bolder, and more far-reaching solutions, and that is expensive.
San Francisco does have an annual budget of more than $500 million to provide housing and social services to the homeless. But there are problems. 1 in 10 supportive housing units sits vacant. And according to Wilson, there has been missed opportunities.
We have not taken full advantage of opportunities to purchase a number of the hotels that we could have when we had significant investments.
Wilson is hopeful this experiment will provide the first steps to some new solutions.
There's an opportunity to engage deeply in a conversation about some solutions that we can all get behind.
And we'll start the process.
Now, the first set of solutions. The breakout group hit the stage. Their task, how to create more shelter for unhoused people. They actually tweaked the question.
How can we create the right model for unhoused people to move to permanent housing as soon as possible?
Step one, step it up.
We think that homelessness should be treated like a natural disaster, and the city should have that kind of urgency in addressing the problem.
1, treat homelessness as a life and death emergency. 2, get loud about it, mobilize with others, call City Hall, attend meetings, be persistent, demand to end the crisis.
City Hall responds to resident voices. That is a fact. Residents need to demand an end to the street crisis now. It can start with more shelter. That's not the only solution. We've tried to be clear about that.
The city gets the sickest off the streets first and into supportive housing, but not everyone needs it.
It's the most expensive housing that the city builds. It's $600,000 per unit right now in San Francisco.
3, require the city to develop a path for those who need a helping hand to get a job and independent housing with a subsidy that tailors off over time.
It's about the person. It's about people with particular needs. You have to figure out what those needs are so that person can leave the streets and move on to a better situation with permanent housing.
As for the design solutions, they did ignite feedback. One concern, money. There's a projected shortfall of tens of millions of dollars generated from a local business tax that helps to fund homeless services.
All the stable bellwether companies are gone, and they're not coming back. And we had one thing to rely on. We put all our eggs in the tech basket, and that tech basket blew up.
A host of tech companies recently laid off staff, including Twitter and Salesforce. It's unclear how the drop in revenue will impact homelessness spending. As for accountability, San Francisco residents just got a new tool with the passage of Prop C. The charter amendment creates an oversight commission that will manage the city's homelessness budget. Its duties include required audits. Coming up, our design thinkers grapple with public safety and crime as certain residents in San Francisco express why they no longer feel safe in the city. Welcome back to SF Next, searching for solutions, where citizens are tackling some of the city's biggest problems in an entirely different way. In breakout room number 2, the focus will be on crime and public safety. In San Francisco, crime is up, especially the numbers of robberies, car break-ins, and larcenies. The SF Next poll found nearly half of San Franciscans have been the victim of theft. Many of these thefts include a staggering number of car break-ins, especially in one part of the city. KPIX 5's Kenny Choi spoke to one small business owner who says city officials need to put the brakes on it.
Who wants to go on vacation and be on edge worrying about getting their stuff stolen?
Marcus Smith manages a bike rental store in Fisherman's Wharf.
All right.
But his weekday business is not bustling like it once did.
You can leave it right there, that's fine. Tourists as well as like family, friends, people that would be thinking of coming to San Francisco are definitely turned off.
The pandemic has dealt an enduring blow. So too has the threat of crime.
Definitely don't want to leave your car on the street unattended for long periods of time.
Marcus doesn't just work in San Francisco, he lives here and is disappointed by the city's response.
We stop calling the police when it happens because it happens so often and the police do not come.
It's a continuous problem.
Nearby workers have also grown weary of the promises, pledges, and tough talk by city officials.
They just need more patrol out on the street.
A couple of miles away at a barbershop in Polk Gulch, the owners are also concerned about crime, but in this case, the drug dealing that surrounds them.
For the businesses, it does affect like traffic, right? Less tourists, less people willing to go into certain areas and support certain businesses.
It makes some wonder, why even live here?
I think people are pissed off that they have to pay so much rent or whatever. It's not a cheap place to live, and they have to deal with such a high amount of just dirty streets, homelessness, all that.
As for Marcus, he can only wait and see whether the threats of crime will eventually drive tourists away to another destination far from San Francisco.
There's nothing being done to stop it, so if anything does happen, it's just a loss.
Some community members say that they just don't feel safe living in San Francisco, and for good reason. They are part of the Asian American community. In the SFNext survey, Asian Americans say their top concern is not homelessness, but safety and crime. Few believe the situation will get better anytime soon. Nearly half believe it will only worsen. As the design thinkers worked on solutions for nonviolent crimes, another event unfolded on the main stage. 3 Asian Americans began to talk about the violence and hate directed against their community.
And we're here to talk about a really thorny topic, public safety. It's something that's top of mind for a lot of people.
The panel included Chronicle podcaster Cecilia Lay, Sarah Wan with the Community Youth Center of San Francisco, and Eddie Zhang. At age 16, Zhang was convicted of 16 felonies, including home invasion, robbery, and kidnapping. He became the youngest prisoner at San Quentin. Now, he steers at-risk immigrant kids away from crime. Zhang knows firsthand the blessings of a second chance.
For me, as someone who has spent 21 years of my life incarcerated, I understand intimately about the need for public safety and personal safety. And then also that law enforcement and prisons and tougher policy to criminalize people of color is not the only solution.
The group discussed to build a bridge between the Asian and African American communities. It won't occur overnight, but the strategy is a critical investment.
We believe that if there's no safety for one community, there's no safety for all communities.
So we looked at crime.
The design thinkers are now ready to present their solutions. The task, how to make residents feel safer from nonviolent crime.
We thought a short-term low-hanging fruit fix could be, and again, we were encouraged to think big. We came up with a San Francisco supervisor exchange program. So instead...
1, supervisors have to spend up to a month living in another district to develop empathy and a better understanding of what the entire city needs. 2, staff police stations the same way they do firehouses. While on duty, police should live or sleep over in the communities they serve.
To get the police more invested in the locations and the people that they're policing as opposed to coming from out of town.
And 3, get better, reliable crime statistics that show where the crime is committed and to whom. Up next, why is San Francisco housing so expensive? Listen to these 2 union guys. Plus some innovative solutions about cutting the red tape. That's coming up. Welcome back to SFNext, searching for solutions, where citizens are tackling some of the city's biggest problems in an entirely different way. Finally, room 3. Here, the breakout group will deal with the lack of housing affordability. In the SFNext poll, from renters to homeowners, an overwhelming majority agree something has to be done about unaffordable housing. Ryan Yamamoto explains.
Before the break of dawn, a routine kicks off in Concord. Lisa Gagliotti grabs her lunch, stashes it, and then says goodbye to her cat. Within seconds, she's out the door and on her way.
I gotta catch Bart in time to make it to San Francisco to go to work.
Lisa works as a special education teacher at Hillcrest Elementary School. That public school is about 30 miles away.
I usually walk to the end so that maybe I can get a seat.
Now boarding at Pleasant Hill.
Her commute takes about an hour and a half. 15 BART stops and a packed bus ride later, Lisa is finally ready to start her day.
Good morning. Aiden, you can come back.
The teacher would love to live in San Francisco, but
I just can't afford it. There's no way I can afford it on my teacher salary.
And while San Francisco officials just broke ground on an affordable housing project for teachers, Lisa says that doesn't help her students. Their families can no longer afford to live here either.
Over the years, our enrollment has gone way down because our families, our black and brown families, can't afford to live in the city anymore. So they're moving out.
One way to increase more affordable housing in San Francisco is to build more modular housing. They cost far less. But some are saying no thanks. When it comes to the nuts and bolts of building more homes,
with that in mind,
Chronicle reporter Kevin Fagan turned to a couple of union guys.
This is
considered a union town. So that's why we have union guys up here, because the people who are going to build those supportive housing complexes are going to be union guys.
Fagan interviewed Jay Bradshaw from the Carpenters Union, who supports modular housing, and John Doherty from IBEW, who supports traditional construction. The two agree San Francisco needs more housing. They just don't fully agree on how we get there.
How can we get the housing done fastest? And how can you make it so that these things aren't coming up from Mexico so you can cross the, do a hands across the water with John and his other unions?
I don't know that there'll ever be a hands across the water, because I think we have a different approach to things.
Some of the claims about modular housing on that it has increased production times and savings, we just haven't seen it. Not to say that there aren't any savings, but there's nothing significant.
I think most people in this audience and in the city, they just want the housing done.
How do we build more housing? Again, two things need to happen. The broken entitlement process needs to be fixed.
Explain that.
Well, it's so hyper-politicized.
We're actively trying to find them projects, which requires people in the city to get out of the way.
So I'm here now with Kevin Fagan with the San Francisco Chronicle. We definitely heard two opinions on either side. Did you expect that, and did we come up with a solution?
What I got from that panel is that it's a muddled mess. Too many regulations, which are being addressed, but at this point, it's just too hard to get something built.
Our design thinkers have some ideas.
What if you just took a pilot area, removed restrictions, made the process easy, and saw what happened?
The solutions: 1, build a pilot housing or neighborhood project without the red tape. 2, throw out the politics and have an impartial third party make land use and housing approval decisions. 3, turn vacant downtown office buildings into multi-purpose real estate. And 4, property tax reform.
We have to generate more revenue to build affordable housing.
But the recent election shows a split. Voters passed a measure to tax property owners who keep their units empty for extended periods. But they also rejected 2 measures that would have streamlined approvals of certain types of affordable housing construction. Okay, so where do you go from here?
Well, now we go back and figure out what we want to do. We have a great group of people who we're going to rely on going forward for more ideas, and we have to figure out our next event.
As for what the guests thought,
it was worth my while. I met so many people, such diversity of opinions.
Where we were really trying to delve into solutions. I found that really productive and exciting.
I'm going to walk away fully inspired and optimistic.
So what do you think about what you just saw? Would this work in your city or town?
We really want to hear from you. Email us at sfnext@sfchronicle.com.
Or post on our KPIX social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Thank you for joining us.